Hi, this is my model Veronika, and she has long, beautiful hair, and I'd like to keep it that way. So I'm going to introduce her to our long version of the spring haircut collection, Capricious. What this haircut is about is longer layers in through the back profile, squared layers all throughout the perimeter. We're going to incorporate rounded layers in through the top profile. In through the front, a very long asymmetrical fringe connected right around the perimeter here in the front, adding softness to the design. I think it's going to look fantastic. Let's have some fun. Let's begin by pre-sectioning the design, separating the top profile left from right, the natural parting, front from back at the top of the ear across the crown, and the back profile is separated from slightly above the ear down in a diagonal parting to below the occipital. We're going to begin cutting by separating that lower profile into two equal vertical subsections, combing it straight down to its falling position, and with zero elevation, we're going to point cut. Deep point cutting, leaving a very nice broken perimeter. Repeat the movement on the opposite side, laterally directing the outside slightly towards the middle, and using your guide from the previous cut side, continue cutting straight across at 90 degrees, creating the amount of desired texture. Checking to see if the line is there, and just making sure I have continuity. Even on both sides, let's go to work on the interior. This is going to be done in 5 vertical subsections. We really want this perimeter to lay very flat, so we're going to do a square cut from the existing length. So taking that entire section up into your hand and using the very bottom length as your guide, point cut, creating the amount of desired texture depending on the client's density. 90-degree elevation, again using the underneath length as your guide, right at the perimeter, right at that hairline. Cut square. Each section is laterally directed towards the middle, and again using the underneath length as your entry point. If you'd like to leave a touch fall out just for a little added strength in that line, that's fine. But the objective here is to create very flat layers at the very bottom of this design. This outside section, comb straight back towards the middle, elevation 90, and repeat the movements. Cutting between your hand and the head shape will allow you the freedom to cut as deep as you'd like. Picking it up, making sure again we have continuity, and moving to the other side. Repeat the exact same movements. As much as you can, try and comb each of these sections on its own, and strictly depending on that underneath as your visual guide, enter and point cut. This is stationary cutting, but we're moving our shears in and out, creating that very unique texture that point cutting does. Last section, again, laterally direct each section to the middle and continue the same movements. Elevation 90, finger angle 90, point cutting. The looser you are in these movements, the more texture and variation in lengths that you're creating on the interior, but you're still cutting flat layers. So let's take the remainder of the back profile and subdivide that about 50-50. score right below the crown, right below the parietal. Again, we're going to subdivide this into 5 equal vertical subsections. And starting in the middle, we're going to elevate the underneath as well as the new section being cut at the same time, using that as your guide. Elevation 90, finger angle 90, and continue the exact same movements for point cutting. Notice I'm being very, very aggressive and cutting that deep texture in with the tips of my shears. I'm not really concerned about a straight and accurate line. That's why I'm being just so loose in my approach. Again, each section laterally directed to the middle. Don't forget to look at the big picture. Combing it nice and even, fine side of your comb, and repeating the same exact movements. It's okay if you want to take just a touch from the previous section to use as a visual guide, and you'll see that you can see through the section that you took and see the guide that you previously cut. Have some fun with this. Be a little bit carefree. Moving on to the other side, repeat the movements. Here's a great visual of what we're accomplishing. That outside section, again, to the middle, 90 degrees, point cut, creating very flat, square layers. I'm just going to pull some from the other side and check and see if we have symmetry. Look how broken that falls in the perimeter. That's going to lay really flat, soft, even though it's a very long length. We've taken that density out of the bottom profile, so it's not a heavier design. So now, we have the crown area left in the back. Now we're going to subdivide the side right below the parietal. This parting should connect to the one in the back that's remaining. And we're going to get this top up and out of our way. Taking a small section from the back profile right behind the ear, we're going to comb the sides straight down and we're going to connect the back to the sides. Using the guide from the back, we're going to connect point cutting. I really want to emphasize the texture you're creating in this perimeter is your choice, depending on the client's density and the texture desired. Straight down's natural falling position, using the guide from the back, point cut connecting the front. This is cut straight across at 90 degrees. So now that we've connected the back to the sides, we're going to take this entire side profile, comb it straight up to an elevation of 90 degrees, and as we did in the back profile, we're going to use that very underneath section, see it fall out, leaving a little bit of density in her perimeter, and again, point cutting straight up, 90 degree finger angle, 90 degree elevation, and continuing that flat process that we created in the back. Repeat the movements on the opposite side. The whole section at one time, laterally directing it slightly towards the ear, elevation 90, and point cut. So now we have this entire top profile. We're going to subdivide the back into 2 equal sections. And the front's already done for us. We've sectioned out the perimeter. We've sectioned out the fringe in a horseshoe shaping, coming from corner of the eye to the corner of the eye and approximately 1.5 inches into the hair. So now we have 4 vertical sections in through the top. Starting with her top right crown area, we're going to comb this up and over the head shape, making sure we're keeping left from right separate. Using the guide from our previous underneath cut section, where we cut those flat layers, we're going to continue to connect the back in through the crown area by keeping the hair very, very wide in our fingers, elevation of 90, and giving it a twist. The hair that is coming from the crown area, again, is straight across the top of the head shape, where the underneath hair is traveling further towards the front. Using that guide from our previous section, our finger angle is going to be parallel to the head shape, and again, point cut. So this actually leaves the crown area a little shorter because we're making the back travel further than the crown, and again, distance equals length. So the crown area is traveling straight across the head shape, and the back is coming beyond and further than the crown. Finger angle parallel to the head shape and point cut. And this completes the entire back. So now we're working to her right front, again combing that up and over the head shape. So now we're using the guide from the crown that we just cut as our guide to enter. Again, the crown area stays straight over to you and the front travels to the back. Our finger angle 90 degrees, elevation 90 degrees, and point cut. Try to keep this section as wide as you can in your fingers for a little bit more drastic results. Again, the further the hair travels, the longer the length. Repeat the exact movement on the opposite side. I'm using the head shape to create rounded layers, vertically wrapping it up and over the head shape into over direction. Again, twist the hair, making sure you're paying attention to where the hair is traveling. The crown stays at the crown, the front travels to the back, elevation 90, finger angle 90, point cut. I just want to share with you the results that were achieved by using the head shape and making each section travel up and opposite of where it falls. Should give me shorter in the middle and moving outward and rounded to both sides. We use the same guide, so we're going to get accurate results. So let's move to the fringe. Drop the fringe area, comb it out from the head shape. Elevation approximately 45 degrees. The in and out movement is to the chin. Now my fingers are parallel to her head shape. And again, point cutting. Laterally directing the hair to where I want the shortest, moving to longer, and look at the beautiful line this creates. A nice face framing perimeter right in the front profile. Comb it back down to its natural falling position, and we're going to connect both sides. Little or no elevation, connect from the existing length of the fringe into the side profile utilizing a slight C shaping. Open and closing your shears, creating ultimate texture in that front perimeter. Repeat the same movement on the opposite side, but now you're going to be backhanding, but still connecting from the length we cut our fringe all the way to the length of the perimeter. Open and closing your shears. Do not remove that corner. So now we've got a very longer layered haircut. Lots going on in through the bottom profile. Longer, rounded, beautiful outward moving layers in through the top profile. Maintaining length, but creating a lot of movement. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work in through the interior and do a very unique type of texturizing. We call this weave texture. We're taking vertical partings, as many as you need to, depending on the density of her hair. Elevation 90 degrees. Using your shears like a highlight comb, weave hair into your shears and cut up and out, creating a very unique tapered type of texture, but also giving it direction and support. The shorter underneath is going to help support that longer hair falling on top, making sure you're moving up and out towards her existing length. Each of these sections are brought straight back off the head shape. The amount of weaving is your choice, again, depending on her density. And repeat the movements on the opposite side. So we're moving up the head shape. We're going to section out just the top profile, leaving the middle. And again, work throughout the design, creating vertical sections, elevating it straight out to 90 degrees, and the same exact movement, weaving your comb in and out of the design and taking out a little bit more density, leaving negative space, and again, those shorter hairs underneath supporting the longer hair on top. This is a great technique if you want to create internal movements without creating a lot of layers in through the top profile. Longer hair clients have their hair longer because they enjoy that length on the top. By utilizing this technique, I'm cutting shorter underneath, working out to that existing length, those square flat layers in through the bottom profile with up and out texture in the interior. A great combination to create a lot of movement and softness within a design without layering from short to long, starting in the crown. Remember, the section in front of the ear is really light in its density, so do not be aggressive in your weaving. Repeat the exact same movements on the opposite side. This can be random texturizing, where you feel as though there's some density needed to be taken out, or this can be done precisely to create even texture throughout the head shape. Moving to the section behind the ear, remember there's not a lot of density, so be easy in your weaving, and you can get a little heavier when you get into the interior or the middle of the haircut, so to speak. Just want to create a little bit of that texture right in front of the ear. Doesn't take a lot. Again, be careful. So now we drop down the entire rest of the top profile. And again, weaving, making sure we're leaving that length and cutting out towards her existing length. Keep your sections clean. Remember the movements, the elevation. So even though this is a longer haircut, there's a lot going on in this interior to provide the results that we're looking for. The great thing about this movement here is that if you want to release a little bit more density even after the haircut has been dried and styled out, you can go in and ever so lightly repeat these movements on dry hair to get the exact feel that you want to that design. Moving to the other side, repeat the exact same movements. So now we're going to section out the fringe. If you want to see a little bit more of texture, repeat the same movements. But now you can see I'm staying a little bit away, more towards the ends, and just releasing a little bit of weight towards the end. We still wanted to keep this fringe longer for this design, so it wouldn't be advantageous to go in and cut lots of shortness in throughout. Weave gently, move out from the head shape, leaving that length. Just a little bit more. Last section, just to add a hint of negative space, texture, ever so slightly work out. you want to release a little bit of weight from the top, creating more of a tapered fringe, come from the top, randomly grab some sections and just cut down and out. Just releasing a little bit more of that bulk. This is fine tuning and making that good haircut into a great haircut, just by personalizing it and paying attention to those ever so important details. I felt as though this crown top needed just a bit more texture in there, so I'm going in and just weaving out a little bit more and taking that out. So here's proof that if you want to, your interpretation of density, movement, and texture is what's important here. I wanted to go in and really liberate this top profile. It felt still a little bit too dense for me. So to go back in and repeat these movements is okay. The whole objective is to create all of those different links within a design, but for a reason. Shorter underneath, longer towards the top. The underneath is styled out, giving it some support. I think this is going to look great. I love the movement already. She kept her longer hair, versatile fringe, lots going on.